Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today wherever you are viewing us from. Today we have Alvin, Jie and Wen Tian with us, and we're going to dive into some interesting questions. So let's start with the first one. As architects, we are service providers. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree.
You agree?
Yes.
Yes, definitely.
Well, I guess that's unanimous. So I think we're always balancing this, expectations, bringing, the difficult, news to clients, and also bringing good news and things like that. But I think one thing that many of us can agree on is that when we have a good relationship with our clients, things are always easier and smoother to go through from the start to finish. So how do you guys actually manage that good relationship with your clients?
Manage the relationship.
I don't know. Did somebody write answers out there? Because all of you turn up at the same time.
No. I'm just I'm trying to prove from our examples and our experience.
Okay.
How do
I didn't know. Hey, guys, no cheat sheet up there.
No, I guess it's also because it's so, maybe because it's so part and parcel of who we are as architects, right? It's not saying like, we bend over backwards every time, whatever that they want, but it's just that it's part of the business that we have to ensure that the clients are happy with the service. Yeah, so when, and that question is as if like we have to do something very special, but it's kind of part and parcel of everything we do. And of course, like first thing, of course, performance, right? If you promise something and then you perform, of course, they'll be happy. Make sure that things are on time. They are, they go to site and then see that, okay, there's good progress. They ask for something, you promise them, okay, it's delivered to them. Yeah, so what else?
Personally?
Okay, maybe sometimes it's like really doing a bit of that extra, going the extra mile. So one thing which I hate, right, is that clients ask me for meetings on weekends. Because weekends are so precious for us, right? Especially when we have our families. But sometimes when you I make it as a point that I don't have I don't ever work on weekends.
Whoa.
But when you say, okay, for this time, I'll go with you to go and see this supplier, then it actually becomes something quite special to them. Like, oh, you are like
okay. So you already managed the expectations.
It's all managed.
So this is something special.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you set the boundaries first, but you do have some a bit of that allowance for you to kind of do this, so that they do feel appreciative that you are taking your personal time. Yeah, so that is a personal time. That's not working time. I'm taking personal time out, and I'm, going, with you for this visit, so that you are properly advised. So that really matters. Sometimes small little gestures like that.
I think that's very interesting. Like one of the things that I want to ask you guys is that, so you mentioned, right, you don't work on weekends and you make it a point to let them know this. One of the things that I always struggle with is there is a potential client that's coming to inquire about our services, but they say, can we meet a site on a Saturday? So that's the very, very first meeting. Will you go and meet them on a weekend? Will that then set that expectation that, hey, weekends are fine? I'm always very cautious about that. Like, try to put it on a weekday. How about you guys?
BD got exception lah.
Oh no, actually for me no.
Okay,
because it's if you open the floodgates, that's it. Then they will question, hey, why are you not meeting on Saturdays? You met me on a Saturday, right?
Yeah.
So it's about how you really set the boundaries. Yeah, so even if it's just to meet them, potential clients, I'll really say no. But maybe if it's a bit more flexible, I'll try to make it a late afternoon, evenings, where it's a bit easier. Yeah, because evenings, essentially, weekday evenings, it's kind of like just OT lah, which we always do OT anyway. So that's not so bad. Yeah, so again, boundaries and what is your buffer. Yeah, so really don't set precedents. No, really, I mean, you need to rest. Right, we need to rest. We need to have that time for ourselves. We have to set the boundaries right from the start. That's my advice.
I'm not sure. Lean a bit more towards what Wen Tian said, because when it's prospect or business development wise, right, I give a bit more flex.
I see.
But at the same time, I also agree with what you say about I don't want to open the floodgates. So usually my default will be,
Later.
can you meet on a weekday? I only do working hours.
Yes.
So then they get it.
Yeah,
Because
correct.
they're also working, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
correct. Yeah.
So then they get, then you start to align on the expectations, but then you might say, as a first visit, no issues, I can come down and have a look at the site, whatever with you. But then you kind of give the hints already. So the next time is, can we have a follow-up meeting? How about the same time Saturday? Oh, no, how about weekdays? Or I can accommodate maybe 6 o'clock. So usually that works out, at least from my own experience. And if they ask me for a meeting on weekends, I have to ask my boss, who is 9 years old. My boss usually says no. So I just tell them, my boss says no.
Boss gotta go to the playground.
But that's a very good trick, because if they have a family as well, they get it.
Yeah, they get it.
So you kind of suck it out.
For sure.
Yeah, actually, that's a very interesting thing that you just said, because
Like
sometimes if you're running your own firm, right, like if you're working in a firm, when a client throws something hard, you say, sorry, my boss say cannot. Like if you're the boss, right, they're gonna look at you, why cannot? So I like the answers. I can my kid or my wife at home is the actual boss.
So it helps to break the ice.
Yeah,
Then
yeah.
sometimes they can understand if they have family as well.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Yeah.
Usually it works. Then because you have some kind of alignment on it, like they're trying to develop their place, you're trying to do your job. Let's see how we can meet.
Yeah, humans after all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but definitely something for young practice to manage this lah. Because right now I'm struggling with the part about messaging on weekends.
I don't reply.
Sure, maybe I need to start to.
Same.
It's a habit.
I think it's a.
I think the risk of burnout is very high, and you don't realize it until it hits you.
But the fact is, those coming out at the start, they are so keen to,
Understand.
the drive. There's that survival mode. Okay, for those who just came out lah, and wanting to.
It's difficult, but I think from what I mentioned earlier, that has been quite effective for me, which is I must separate myself from the business. I must. It cannot be me. Then there's issues. Once you separate, I think it helps you with decision making.
Being a service provider, the next thing we will be questioning is, are we afraid of our clients?
I think, maybe I'll just...
Sure.
Yeah, we just
get the
jump in
ball
on it,
rolling,
yeah.
right?
So,
I think it's natural and it's normal to be intimidated by the client. I myself am intimidated by a client a lot of times, but I think what's more important is you have to be compliant to yourself, which is your own principles, and then that will be the guiding path in your interaction with the clients. I mean, that's usually what I tell myself before I meet a client or a new client. So I don't know about what you guys think.
Yeah, for me it's a bit different. I don't think it is a good first step to be afraid of our clients. For me, it's quite different. But maybe also because my projects are mainly quite small and private residential projects, so I tend to want to be friends with the clients. So that has to be that I thought maybe is a better footing to kind of get into the project. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't feel the same, but I find that if you are scared of a client, then it's kind of like a toxic relationship kind of thing, and it may become quite difficult, to actually bring the project forward. So that's why I don't agree.
Yeah, for me, I think we definitely should be afraid of falling short of the expectations of the clients, because if we really to recap the Architects Act, our duty is to serve our clients with complete fidelity. So this actually is a rather very heavy responsibility. So and of course, same as Pinjam, I'm also doing small projects, and understanding the amount of landed houses in Singapore and the chances of the client entrusting this huge responsibility to you. Out of all this, around I think 1,800 practicing architects right now, to take over a project that's around 3 million, maybe they bought the land price, and to renovate that whole thing, maybe 1 to 2 million. That is a huge responsibility. So the fear, I think, is always with the fear of falling short of the expectation, and I think that is a great driver for us to always keep up to try to meet this expectations of our client, to serve him well and try to deliver the best project that we can.
So if, for example, I mean, we've talked about, whether we're afraid of clients in terms of, let's say they were intimidating us, and I think Wen Tian did answer more on for the fear of falling short of the delivery. But I think the question is if they were very aggressive and intimidating to you. So maybe Wen Tian, how would you then handle such a situation apart from just being afraid of falling short of expectations?
Right. So I think it's always we have to stand a professional ground, which is we are professionals. Okay, so we have to always maintain that level of professionalism. Firstly, the other aspect is to handle this project in a way that is serving the client's interests, but at the same time understanding what's the requirements of a professional. Which in this case, I think it is perfectly fine to be slightly afraid, but still carry out your duty well to serve the client.
Okay. I mean, with that being said, then the next question is, what actually determines, your completion of the project, the design? Is it the design? Is it compliance, or compliance to the client's wants and needs? Is it purely the wants and needs, the brief, or is it compliance to your duty as an architect?
Actually, I think what Wen Tian mentioned, right, is the fear of not meeting the expectations is something that perhaps, again, same thing as what I mentioned earlier, right? I try to find a guiding principle, and that may not necessarily be from the client's perspective, but in terms of managing expectations, I mean, aside from architecture, right, everything is similar. You buy a cai fan, right? You want the meat, one veg. You expect to get that. But if the person gives you 2 veg, no meat, then be like, hey. So it's always about that expectations. And because of that, I think, your follow-up question about the brief, is it about just delivering the brief? Is it about whatever the client wants? I think those will be reconciled once you're mindful of the fact that it is about expectations and it is about you as a service provider. So that's a first step towards reconciling that.
Yeah, I thought that's a fantastic point about expectation brought up by Alvin. I think always the conflict comes from mismatch of expectations.
Yeah, I think so.
And then that's when it's especially important for us as architects, young ones, to really learn about communicating expectations well and true at the onset. Because I feel that in projects that if you have set out the expectation well through documentation of project, through explaining the contract clearly, that is managing expectations. And that's when the clearer the picture of this expectation, the lower the chances of conflicts. So this is the lower the chances. I think this is an interesting point because I always tell my clients that this project will not be 100% smooth. I always tell them, yes, I'm managing expectation. I always tell them that this project, there will be 10% there will be things going wrong. But if I'm not good enough, if I'm not here, it will be 50%. So, right? Okay, you can learn that. But that's always how I love to start a project because I have not encountered any projects that is 100% smooth, right? So managing expectation is a fantastic way to start a project. But we can get to the details of that, but we're happy to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, maybe I circle back a little bit to the point I made. I think we have to see it as, it's really, as a service provider, the employer or the client is engaging me as a service provider. And there's no reason why they should be intimidating, right? We are professionals. They need us to provide our expertise so that they can get something that they want. Yeah, so it's a professional relationship. There shouldn't be a need to be intimidating. And if they are, and you feel intimidated, then it seems like dynamics is a bit off. Yeah. Whether you can try and balance that's a skill. And if you're not able to, then you have to be careful because you may be getting into something. A project is quite long, right? Like a house, at least 3 years maybe designing plus construction and all that. And so can you take that kind of pressure, and concurrently you have a few projects like that. So that's something which you have to be quite careful with. What are you getting into, getting yourself into. And another thing, yes, about the managing of expectations. I think I learned something from Wen Tian. Yeah, how do you kind of lay out the whole overview of the project and give them certain warnings on what may happen. Yeah, so I thought that that's a good way to start the project.